How can we make karate more effective? So a lot of the criticism that karate receives is that it is impractical in a real situation or a real fight. So I'm going to go over a few ways that you can make your karate more effective in a real situation. Okay. Now, whether that means real situation in terms of self-defense or in terms of fighting in kind of a sport arena, like maybe MMA or something. But I'm going to give you a few ways in which you can change your karate approach to make it a more competitive martial art. So the first one we could do is increase the frequency we are sparring, and also to change the way we're sparring. If you are not interested in competing in sport karate, and what I mean by sport karate is more so WKF kind of karate, because that's kind of the area that I know. There are obviously other federations that do different versions of sport karate. But if you're not interested in competing in sport karate, your sparring should not be limited by the rules that sport karate has. You know, so we should be able to use knees and maybe some elbows, obviously with control still, some grappling, some closer range type sparring. You know, we shouldn't be limited to just scoring points on a partner if we are not interested in competing in competition. For those that want to win competition, play by the rules. And for those that want to improve their karate to be an effective fighting martial art, more kind of akin to what it used to be originally, then change your sparring up to be a little closer to what maybe an MMA sparring would look like, where you're incorporating grappling, even groundwork, throwing, close range strikes, circular punches, knees, all this kind of stuff. The next way that we can make our karate more effective is to do a lot more pad work. If you look at martial arts that are heavily focused on full contact sparring, they do a hell of a lot more pad work than a lot of karate dojos do. I mean, some dojos do no pad work at all, you know, no impact work at all. It's all up in the lines, punch in the air, kata, without any actual impact work. And I've always said to my students and to people that I teach that the quickest way to learn how to deliver a technique properly and efficiently is to hit a target, you know, hit the punch bag, the heavy bag, the kick shields, focus mitts, all this kind of stuff to understand correctly your timing, your distancing, how it feels to land a strike, the correct alignment in your hand position. You know, you very quickly learn if your hand is off alignment when you're punching the bag, because it will buckle and you'll learn immediately not to do that again. It's also good for conditioning the hands, feet, knees, elbows, everything for landing on an actual target, because there's only so much we can do by punching in the thin air. The next way that we can improve our effectiveness of our karate is to, when we are adapting or when we're looking into kata application, to stop doing it against karate techniques. You know, it's very common to see one of the partners stepping back with a gidan and making an oizuki and delivering the application against attacks that are karate based. How many times do you see someone outside of the dojo step in and make an oizuki punch? It doesn't happen, okay? So if we want to make our karate more effective and have a trained response to some of these movements that we will be maybe exposed to in either a sort of a heavier sparring situation, like I said, in MMA, or in maybe a street situation in terms of self-defense, we need to train against those kind of techniques. You know, people throwing big overhand punches, grabbing each other and sending knees in, this kind of stuff, you know? So when you take your kata apart, don't think of it as a karate versus karate technique. Think of it as a karate versus a untrained or an aggressive fighting technique from outside of karate. The final point I'm going to do that can help to make your karate more effective is to watch real fights. You know, this can be in, again, MMA, UFC kind of things. See how fights actually happen. You know, the timing of them, the speed of them, the distancing that fights really happen. You know, if you look on YouTube, there's thousands of videos of, you know, self-defense situations, real captured sort of fights in a street or whatever, and also MMA, of course, you know, UFC and that. Especially when you look at some of these bare knuckle fighting championships now that are quite popular online. You know, this is a lot more realistic in terms of what a fight would look like outside. So if you want to have your karate effective in that arena, or, you know, be effective to protect yourself when you need it, we need to understand what it's really like. You know, it doesn't come as single attacks, you know, like a single jab or something and another one coming from the back there. It's more erratic and aggressive and fast. You know, someone will be on you very quick and they'll use things that you're not used to using, headbutts, biting, shoulders, kind of things like that, you know. So we have to be aware that those that are maybe untrained, you know, can be sort of sometimes more dangerous because they're using things that are out of our normal toolbox that we're used to training with. You know, if we're constantly training and we're dealing with techniques that are kind of permitted in our sport, we're not getting exposed to those other things, headbutts and all this kind of stuff, you know. So if you want to make your karate effective, we have to consider those things as well, you know. So rather than just thinking about these 1-2s, we're thinking about heads going in, all this kind of stuff. Okay, the kata has all these movements, you know. If you look in the kata and think about it in a different way, there's all these kind of moves in the katas, headbutts, shoulders, you know, throws, all this kind of things. I've said this one before in one of my, you know, in some of my videos before, is to train with intention all the time. You know, train as though you are fighting. Every time you go into a kata or your kion or even your kumite, you are training as though you are fighting. You know, not simply doing aerobics and making shapes, because it's very easy to kind of just cruise along, get a little cardio workout out of your karate. But if you want to make it effective, every technique needs to be a technique that is able to drop an opponent if that's what we are training for. You know, not everyone trains for the same thing, but you know, even if you're stepping, making your oizukis and stepping and punching, have the intensity and the feeling that you are trying to finish an opponent with that single strike. Take a look on YouTube or wherever you want to find them. Watch some real fighting situations and see if your karate would really stand up to that. There you go. A few ways to make your karate a little bit more effective in terms of the way you're approaching it. So I'll mention again to my partnership with Art Martial Clothing. They're making all kinds of martial arts branded designs and stuff for your hoodies and t-shirts, trousers, all this kind of stuff. I'll leave a link in the description of this video and you can check it out. I'll also put a discount code for you to get 20% off. So check that one out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not done already, and I'll see you next time.